What you want to confess online because you have no one to tell in real life? Story 1. I work as a courier between businesses, and I was in a shipping dock picking up some heavy boxes. As I squatted to pick one up, my pants ripped at the back seam and everything flopped out at the peak of the squat. Now, this wouldn't have been an issue had I not been fresh out of undergarments due to a laundry mistake. It was instantaneous. The loud and fast rip, the sudden drop and freedom of everything bouncing forth, and the immediate crispness of the outside air on my body. I immediately stood up to conceal the exposure and checked around, but there was nobody there. I was still mortified. I tied my hoodie around my waist and eventually made my way to Target to pick up some fresh pants. But I'll forever dread the thought that maybe someone saw what happened and was equally as mortified to have witnessed this catastrophic event. Story 2. More than a couple of decades ago, I joined a traveling basketball squad with some of my closest friends. I was 16 then, about to turn 17. Our basketball manager, let's call him Joel, was a man in his 50s at the time, whom I barely knew. He handled all our team's basketball operations and logistics, from uniforms to travel accommodations and team cookouts. He was a really cool dude, like your typical fun uncle. Name what you need, and he'd help you out. One day we didn't have a game, and my teammate and I decided to hang out at another friend's backyard. Joel was there with us. He liked to smoke cigarettes, and we didn't mind. He loved to joke around and be the funny uncle, which was cool. The jokes eventually turned a little explicit, but we were all teens who had seen adult content and had various levels of dating experience, so it was all just funny jokes to us. Mind you, this was the early 2000s. Times were different. At one point, one of my buddies jokingly pulled down his trousers, and the rest of us laughed. Joel jokingly asked me to do the same. I laughed and said, "I'll leave the exhibitionism to him," referring to my friend. Eventually, the three of us were being silly and laughing, acting like immature teens. Joel then made an inappropriate comment and physical gesture. Initially, we brushed it off and tried to keep the atmosphere light. I pulled up my pants and didn't think too much of it. He didn't insist or try anything else. A few hours passed and we all went our separate ways. Joel probably finished a whole pack of cigarettes that evening. A couple of days later, after a game, I had just showered and was getting dressed. Joel came up to me, and as I pulled off my towel, he repeated the same inappropriate comment and gesture. This time I got startled and immediately pulled away. Joel laughed and said, "What's wrong?" "I'm just saying hi to my friend." I kind of froze and didn't know how to respond. A few days before, one of my teammates had warned me to be cautious around Joel and not to let him cross boundaries. I said, "Oh, it's nothing. I just got startled. But I gotta hurry," and quickly got dressed and left. I saw Joel light a cigarette as I walked to my cousin's car. That was the last time I joined the basketball team. I didn't sign up again. Not because of Joel specifically, but because I got busy with school. The last I heard about him was that he had been mistaken for someone else and fatally shot sometime around 2006. Story 3. Now I know this title may seem pretty boring, but let me tell you that this is the craziest story I have ever told in my life. I was 7, and I was with my granddad, and my sister, and we were looking through this massive shop. I was chatting with my granddad, who is pretty old, though I love the chap, and he never really takes notice of much around him. My gran, on the other hand, is the meanest, harshest, yet nicest woman I have ever met. Think Regina George from Mean Girls, but old and related to me, and my sister was there too. We were walking through the store when my grandparents came over and started talking to me about my upcoming birthday. Gran was suggesting gifts and looking at Lego and Playmobil, but then my sister surprised me by jump scaring me with something. I may have jumped a little, but it was like meeting the brother I never had. A great white shark toy with a roll-up tongue that popped out when you squeezed it. That was what I wanted. I tried to grab it, but my sister ran away to put it back. I shed a tear. I was young, so I didn't really understand how directions worked. My gran said, "All right, let's move on," and led my sister and granddad one way, but I stayed behind, determined to get that shark. I went the opposite direction from my sister and ended up in the card section, far from where the shark would be, and far from my gran. There I met a kind lady who noticed I was alone. She asked, "Are you all right?" But I was too shy to respond. Eventually I managed to say, "Toy." She pointed me to the toy aisle, and somehow I ended up there. And there it was. The rubber great white shark with a roll-up tongue. I think it also squeaked. I was happier than ever, until I realized, how will I pay for this? Now, if you listen closely, you can hear the beginning of my criminal path with this tiny shark. I chose to steal. I put it in my pocket, having no idea I could just ask my gran. Speaking of her, I couldn't find her for another 5 minutes until I heard her scream my name like the world was ending. I ran toward the voice, and the first thing she said was, "What did you do?" Not, "Are you okay?" or "Where were you?" Just, "What did you do?" I had to come up with a lie. I'm not good at lying, but somehow I came up with a decent one because everyone believed me. We got to the checkout, and right before stepping through the doors, I noticed the security sensors. My heart was beating out of my chest. My gran had to drag me out, but I got away with it. I don't know where that shark is now, but I did it. Story 4. I, 34 meters, house sit for other people with the specific goal of going through their things. So I've been a house sitter and pet watcher for a number of years. It's truly easy money. I'm excellent at what I do. Odds are your place will be cleaner than when you left for your vacation or work trip. I'll collect your mail and organize it by the date it was delivered, wash all my towels and bed sheets, never have guests over, etc. However, unknown to you and every person who has let me house sit, I'm going to go through your things, specifically your clothes, mainly just your clothes. I'll open and go through every closet and open and go through all your drawers. Dresses, suits, bathing suits, sweaters, pants, skirts, undergarments, scarves, jackets, hosiery, hats. If you own it, I'm going to take a look. If I really like something, if it really catches my eye or gets my heart going, I'll try it on. I'll stand in front of your mirror and see how it fits me. I'll wear it around the house and see how it feels. Especially if you're a married woman. For some reason, your things in particular, I love to look through and wear. Yes, part of the thrill is doing something I'm not supposed to be doing and the risk of possibly getting caught in your nicest outfit. But mainly, if you thought it was worth buying and wearing, I want to see why. When I'm done, I'll fold it back up or hang it exactly how I found it. You never know. How do I know? Because you've asked me to house sit again and again and again. It started when I was back in high school. My friends would have a party, and when everyone was outside, I'd go upstairs and see what their mom had tucked away. Then I'd try it on, see how I looked, then fold it back and put it away like nothing ever happened. Then I started house sitting and found out I could have free reign and not have to sneak around. I know this all sounds incredibly invasive and like a breach of trust. I'm not looking for advice, just wanted to get it off my chest. Looking back, it does feel wrong, and I regret it now. Story 5. Back in November 2021, I got accepted for the Erasmus Plus project, which grants a free 2-week-long apprenticeship in another European country. I myself am from Poland. My group got sent to Greece, to Athens. It was fairly normal through the first week, but one day as I was heading back to the hotel, I ended up walking into what I thought was a normal bar. You see, I had read numerous online articles about how Greek people are known for their hospitality, and being a teenage guy with ADHD, I took that way too seriously. So whenever someone rewarded me with any kind act, like a kind word or anything, I'd be like, wow, they were right. Greeks really are friendly. Yeah, until, as mentioned, I was heading back to the hotel. I wasn't paying much attention to where I was going, which in hindsight was dumb, especially since it was my first time abroad. I took a few wrong turns and ended up on a main street I didn't recognize. Note, our hotel was on a side alley with little traffic. I was walking around confused, looking for landmarks to guide me back, when some guy around 35 or so asked me what time it was, looking nervous. I told him and was about to keep walking when he grabbed my arm and started talking about a bar he owned just around the corner, saying he wanted to show me his gratitude. And of course, I thought, sure, Greeks are friendly. That's when things went terribly wrong. I know I shouldn't have followed him. I honestly don't know what I was thinking. I was too focused on finding my way back to the hotel and didn't register how sketchy it was. We crossed the street and walked into the bar. It looked fairly normal inside, but what caught my eye before entering was a neon sign with red lips above the door. Inside, there was a round table in the center of the room with larger 4-person tables near the window. He sat me down on a stool at the round table and told me to wait while he grabbed something. I calmed down a little seeing other people around, thinking maybe it was just a typical bar. It wasn't. Suddenly, a woman in a leather miniskirt walked inside the round table, which was hollow in the center filled with wine bottles, and offered me a beer. I say offered because she asked me if I wanted one and immediately started pouring it, telling me to drink up. I sipped it from time to time, not wanting to look completely freaked out, even though I was. She began flirting with me, sitting on my lap, kissing my face, not my lips, making physical contact. I tried to get her to stop by changing the subject, even asking for tourist recommendations. She responded by saying, "Do you want to explore my body instead?" That's a quote. There was also this random curtain in one of the room's corners, and I asked what it was for. It was a red room. She said that for €100 we can go there, followed by some suggestive gestures and poorly imitated moaning sounds. That's when I had the idea to get out, and what saved me was my souvenir bag. Earlier that day, before meeting the guy, I had bought souvenirs for my family and friends, spending around 90% of the money I had on me. I only carried a portion of my cash daily in case I lost it or it got stolen. So I told her I'd love to, but I spent all the money I had today on gifts and needed to go back to the hotel to get more. I promised I'd return. She caressed my face and said, "I trust you, sweetie. Go grab it." I knew I pulled it off. I walked out calmly, but once I was out of sight of the bar windows, I sprinted and took the first turn I could. The best part? That random turn led directly to my hotel. Nobody has ever heard the full story. My parents don't know anything about this. I'm simply too embarrassed to tell it in person, especially knowing most responses would be the lucky guy or I wish I was there type. Oh, and the woman. She had an engagement ring on her finger. Lovely, isn't it? Story 6. Hi guys. Today I want to share a decision I made in my life that changed everything. The way I think, the way I saw things. This wasn't a forced decision or influenced by anyone. It was entirely mine. The decision was that I wanted to marry the love of my life. Here's the story. In 2017, during my intermediate studies, I went to my friend's house. She had invited me over because there was a puja. Everything was going well until one of her relatives came over. We just exchanged a glance. After lunch, I returned home, and everything was fine. But the very next day, that same guy showed up near my house. I was shocked. My family and I were heading to another function elsewhere, and that afternoon I got a call from an unknown number. I answered it, and surprisingly, it was him, the same person I saw that morning. We talked, and I asked how he got my number. Later, during that very first call, he told me he wanted to marry me. I was shocked. We had a significant age gap of nearly 7 years. I said no and told him we should just be friends first and then see where it goes. After that, I didn't talk much because I was focused on my studies. Later, I met him again at my friend's house. He was trying to move too fast and was a little too forward. I told him I wasn't that interested and left shortly after. Then we started talking regularly. One day he met with an accident. I prayed a lot for his recovery because I was starting to have positive feelings about him. He recovered, though he couldn't lift his arm for a while due to a fracture. We continued talking and had a few casual meetups. I felt like things were going well. I had told him from the beginning that I was a bit short-tempered, and he said he could handle it. But things changed on New Year's Day 2019. I waited a long time to talk to him, but he was busy on another call. I waited until 3 a.m. He finally called, speaking as if nothing had happened. I was heartbroken. I cried a lot. I even hurt my arm in frustration. But still, he didn't react like he had done anything wrong. He didn't even apologize. Instead, he made it seem like I was the one at fault because of my behavior. That day, January 1st, the very first day of the new year, was one of the worst. Still, I forgave him and tried to talk, but he wasn't in a place to understand his mistake. The rest of the story will be continued. Story 7. This happened in Gurgaon, near Galleria Market, and I was staying in a nice residential complex behind it. I casually booked a ride without thinking much of it. When the cab arrived, I saw a really attractive girl browsing her phone in the back seat. I got in and casually said hi. She replied with a nonchalant, "Hey," and we started chatting. She seemed cool and had decent conversational skills, especially for someone so good-looking. I played it cool and didn't try too hard. When she started asking me questions about my work and lifestyle, I figured she might be interested. I asked her about her plans, and she said she was heading to the mall. We talked a bit more and ended up connecting on LinkedIn. I had a premium account, and her phone number was public. A few seconds later, she received a text about her location and destination. She looked visibly spooked, but I continued the conversation as if nothing was wrong. I asked if something was bothering her, and after a bit of hesitation, she opened up. I tried to reassure her and suggested she block whoever was messaging her, though she didn't. As she was getting out of the cab, I admitted it had been me texting her, and that it was just a harmless prank. She was a little upset, but also slightly impressed. Since I already had her number, I told her it felt appropriate to ask her out. She hesitated, but eventually agreed, and I asked if she wanted to hang out right then and there. Later that day, we ended up spending time together, chatting and sharing a few drinks. We got along really well, and it was one of those spontaneous connections that just clicked. This all happened back in 2017, and now, 8 years later, guess who's booking flights from Bangalore to Delhi for next week? Story 8. In 7th grade, I was that guy who had 2 close friends. We were a trio. I used to talk to my classmates sometimes about random stuff, but never made any new friends. My 2 friends and I always sat together, talked and laughed during lectures, though we never caused trouble for others. One day, the teacher decided to separate the entire trio. I was placed next to a girl. She was nice to me. I let her copy my notes sometimes, and she helped me out too. I think we became friends then. We used to talk about movies, music, and other things. Then other students started teasing us. They called us lovers and all that. At first, I didn't care. But over time, things started getting out of hand. They wouldn't stop. They even called me by her name when I passed by. It really bothered me. I tried to get them to stop. Even my friends tried to help, but it didn't work. One guy even wrote our names inside a heart on a bench with a marker. That's when I stopped talking to her altogether. I didn't want to be teased anymore. She noticed the change and tried to talk to me about it. I just told her to leave me alone. She didn't have any friends. She was all alone. She had lost her mother just 2 months before this happened. You could tell she was disturbed by it. She didn't express it much, but it was clear she was hurt because of how I pushed her away like that. Soon after, she changed schools. My friends later told me that what I did was wrong. I regretted it. Now I'm a first-year college student. I recently saw her while I was on my way to college. I don't know if she saw me or if she even remembers me, but I definitely remember her, and I'm ashamed of what I did. I wanted to go up to her and talk, to apologize, but I couldn't. I just stood there watching her leave. Update 1. Thank you so much for the responses. There are a few things I want to clarify. I didn't see her near my college. I meant I saw her while I was on my way to college, near a bus stop. I still tried to find her to see if she might be studying at my college. I tried to look for her on social media but couldn't find her. I asked some of my old school friends to see if they could help. One of them messaged me this morning saying he knows a girl who has her contact number. He spoke to her to get the contact and said he would send it to me as soon as he gets it. I'll update again. Thank you again for all the kind responses. Update 2. I got her contact. I messaged her. A few hours later, she responded. I told her everything and apologized. Then she asked if we could talk on a call. I agreed later. She told me that she never held anything against me for what I did. She also shared what had happened after I stopped talking to her. I used to take the bus. She and a few other classmates, the same ones who teased us, used to walk home. After I stopped speaking to her, they kept bullying her because she was all alone. This continued for 2 weeks. Then one day the bullies went too far and made a cruel joke about her mother. One of them pushed her, splashed water on her, and even threw a bottle at her. She was hurt, bleeding and crying. After she started crying, 2 10th grade students who were nearby came to help. The bullies ran away. Her father complained to the school. The school made the bullies apologize to her. She said it felt forced and insincere, and told her they couldn't do much since it happened outside school premises. Soon after, she stopped attending that school. She told me she used to cry every day. She later changed schools. She wasn't bullied at the new school, but didn't make any friends until 9th grade, when she met another girl who had also transferred. They became friends and still are. She said she didn't expect any apology from me. She didn't hate me or anything, but she had really hoped I wouldn't stop talking to her. She said she thought I was more mature than the others back then. She told me I didn't need to apologize because the real ones who needed to were the bullies. I was left speechless. What she went through was too much for someone in 7th grade. I never imagined kids our age could say such cruel things or treat someone like that after such a huge loss. After we talked, she said she had to hang up. She sounded like she was going to cry. I tried to comfort her, but she ended the call. I think this is the last update. If anything else happens, I will post again. Story 9. Me, 14 meters. I was walking out of 4th period math class and went into the bathroom, where I was told to record by a kid who was 16 meters. He went up to a student on the autism spectrum and punched him in the stomach, and I sat there and did nothing while still recording for 22 seconds. Minutes after that, I realized the severity of the punch. The kid was coughing and groaning badly. I ran out of the bathroom, scared of getting in trouble, as I was already close to expulsion and going to juvie. I wanted to go back and check on him so bad. I constantly texted him asking if he was okay and needed help. I felt so bad. Now it's been about 9 hours. He's hospitalized and I feel awful. I've cried 7 times knowing I could have stopped that. If only I had just stepped in and not sat there. I hope the kid is okay. I've known him for a long time, and he's genuinely a kind and amazing, well-spirited kid, and he's hurt so badly. I've tried to justify it, but I feel like I shouldn't. I deserve to be in as much trouble as the other student, and I deserve the consequences. I really messed up this time, and I don't know what to say to him other than sorry over and over. Story 10. This is going to confuse a lot of people, but I'll try my best. OCD could be tricking me. I don't know, but I'll do my best to explain. Warning, this post includes extremely sensitive themes, including intrusive thoughts related to race. OCD has caused me to worry about making what I call bad prayers. It's mainly anxiety about what others would think if they knew I had a negative or harmful thought that ended in the form of a prayer. Sometimes my mind generates a bad thought, and I involuntarily think through it and even end it with Amen. I'm not even sure if that counts as a real prayer, since it's driven by OCD and often feels more real to me than it actually is. But it gets very complicated. None of this makes logical sense to most people, but to me, it feels real, and that's part of the problem. My mind created a concept where I can pray to pray for something. Essentially, these ideas arrive automatically. I don't choose them directly. I can sometimes control how I respond, but that's where it becomes difficult. OCD also blunts my emotional responses or makes some things feel more vivid than they are. So what happened is that my OCD targeted the topic I was most afraid of having a bad prayer about: racism. In the past, I made a mistake that was racially insensitive. I won't share what it was, and I thought about it constantly. I imagined people never forgiving me and saying I deserved to suffer. The guilt made everything worse. OCD took this further. If someone once said, "You deserve to suffer," I would think obsessively about that for hours every day and feel it was justified. That misdirected guilt turned into frustration toward people I thought were judging me. Unfortunately, that included people of color. Then OCD gave me a horrifying idea. If you're so upset, why not pray for something extreme? This thought shook me. Sadly, I've had obsessive experiences where I've said extreme prayers in moments of deep emotional distress. Like once when I felt so hopeless, I prayed for a disaster to happen, knowing I didn't really want it. And then at my lowest, for a brief moment, it felt easy to say something terrible. I almost prayed for something harmful related to race, but I stopped myself. Still, OCD stores those moments. Later, my brain replays the moment and pressures me to repeat it. The praying to pray concept means I can slip into that same mindset again, and if I say Amen, it feels real, even if it wasn't intentional. That's what happened last night. I said something horrible in my head. I regretted it within 2 seconds. It felt like I had prayed something racist. This is exactly what happened in that moment. This isn't who I am, though my brain disagrees. At that time, with OCD and intrusive thoughts, it felt like hatred. But I don't believe I truly feel that way. I think all of it came from misdirected frustration and a deeply broken mental loop. Afterward, all those emotions were gone. It felt unreal. I can't fully understand how my mind works, but I did it, and I regret it deeply. I'm truly sorry. I don't harbor hate toward anyone, no matter what my brain says, but I feel like I did something truly wrong. When I sit with what happened and don't engage with the thoughts, it doesn't feel like a big deal, but the guilt is driven almost entirely by OCD. I don't know if I'm missing something, but I know what happened in that moment. Story 11. I began working for one of the main UK supermarkets after leaving school and starting college a few decades ago. I already knew a few people who worked there, including a couple of friends who used to party with me on weekends. I started out in the cafe section, mostly just sneak buttered toast if I'm honest, Lamau, but eventually moved up to the top tier of what we jokingly called peasant employees, the tills. One of my close friends and I were often assigned to neighboring tills or just a few apart. We'd take our breaks in her car, get a little high, and pass each other funny notes on receipt paper that had us in fits of laughter. I still have some of those notes somewhere, I think. I remember one time having to hide my face under the till because I was laughing so hard, like that moment in school when you're trying not to laugh while getting told off by a teacher. I think I pretended to drop a pen or something just so I could compose myself, all while a line of customers waited during peak hours. Anyway, with that context, time to confess my crimes. I used to scan items really fast, so fast that sometimes the scanner didn't pick up the barcode. Usually you'd scan it again until it beeps. But some of my friends, let's say imaginary for legal reasons, who had worked there longer would purposely skip scanning items for me when I came through their lane. So naturally, I paid it forward. Family, friends, even random strangers got a bit lucky if they queued at my till. They'd find the total was lower than expected. These same imaginary friends also taught me how to get free drinks for the weekends. One of us would shop while another was working a till. When alcohol was scanned, an age verification warning would pop up. We had to click a response saying either they were of age or didn't have ID. It all looked and sounded the same, even to shift leaders. If we couldn't verify age, we were supposed to remove the alcohol, but we just clicked the warning and keep bagging it anyway, pretending we had followed the protocol. No one ever noticed. The management was honestly unbearable. I once walked an hour to get to my shift after they scheduled a disciplinary meeting because I had taken a day off, after a cousin of mine had passed away. This came just 6 months after losing my first love in a car accident, so I was clearly not okay. But they were unhappy I was taking more time off. I quit on the spot. The place was toxic and full of cliques. Also, when I worked in the cafe, they served fish that had maggots, and there were tiny flies in every vinegar bottle. It was honestly the worst part of the supermarket to work in. My next job was in a seafood factory, and it ended up being one of my favorite jobs ever, except in winter. Those 5 a.m. freezing cold starts were brutal. Story 12. Back in middle school, when well into high school, my best friend and I were really into phone pranks, harmless tech tricks, and things like that. It was all for fun and to keep ourselves entertained. Most of the pranks were based on challenges like, how long can you keep them on the phone? Our record was about 23 minutes to order a single pizza. My friend had a setup at home with multi-line phones, one ISDN and then 3 regular landlines, so we decided to start doing conference prank calls. We'd often dial 6 digits, switch to the second line and dial 7, then switch back and dial the final digit, connecting 2 random people or businesses. One day we decided to take it up a notch. We wrote a script with talking points and possible questions, and began calling several Wendy's locations around town. We started each call with, "Hello, please get the manager and hold for corporate." It took us a couple of hours to call every location where a manager was available. Our pitch went something like this. This is Wendy's corporate franchise development. We're losing sales to McDonald's because we don't have a Big Mac equivalent. That changes today. We're giving each location the opportunity to create something to compete. We thought the Big Wendy might not appeal to customers, so we're calling it the Double Wendy for now. You have 1 week to come up with your version of what a Big Mac-style sandwich should be. Starting next Friday and throughout the week, a customer will order 2 Double Wendy meals. You'll ask what drinks they want, then instruct them to pull aside while you prepare it. You'll serve the meals with Biggie fries and Biggie drinks. They won't be charged. Most questions we got were about sauce and whether a middle bun was required. We told them to be creative and that the best creation might win a reward. Flash forward to that Friday, we tested it. The first location had no idea what we were talking about, so we left. The second location took about 10 minutes, but they actually made and served us the meals. We visited 5 more that week. It worked. We ate like kings. Story 13. I need to talk about this because I feel like it might bring me some peace and make my thoughts clearer. I'm using a throwaway account because I showed my face on the other one. Please feel free to ask questions. I'm 17 and I broke my personal streak after 7 months. I had been doing well, told my parents and friends that I was improving, and I didn't think I'd go back. My dad often says I'm clearly doing better, and that makes it harder to talk about things because I don't want to disappoint him. The night it happened, I instantly felt relief, though I don't know why. My mom is a traditional Asian parent, but she has become more supportive of my emotional and mental needs, even if she doesn't fully understand. My dad is strict in all the wrong ways, about things that don't help. I love them both, but sometimes it feels like I'm constantly at war with myself. If anyone wants details, I can share what both of them have done. I'm failing year 11. I can't focus. My head hurts and I blank out as soon as I try to read too much. My memory is so bad it feels like I'm 80 years old. I constantly oversexualize myself because I feel like that's all I'm good for. But I'm afraid of intimacy because of one bad experience. I'm stuck between wanting to be skinny and wanting to be curvy. I'm afraid of losing my body shape because it's the only thing I feel people value about me. I've been offered money for things I never asked for, and the thought of it disgusts me. I'm still stuck on my first boyfriend, even though he hurt me badly. I'm ashamed that I keep going back when he's bored. I'm talking to him again right now, and it's tearing me apart. I know I'm not the only one in his life. I can't even be around other guys anymore. I leave, cancel, or ghost immediately. I've never had a friendship that wasn't shaped by my own jealousy. I think it's because I'm unhappy with myself. I can be two-faced and desperate to be liked, but if someone doesn't like me or we fall out, or even if I think they'll hurt me, I flip and become someone I don't even recognize. If someone hurts me even a little, I'll go out of my way to hurt them back. I've done it. I go through phases where I just want everything to stop, and then others where I think life could actually be good. I keep telling myself I just need to make it to my 18th birthday, but it's becoming hard. I'm not sad. I'm not angry. I'm not even tired. I just feel nothing. Every day feels like I'm crawling toward the finish line. Sleep is the only peace I get. I don't know how much longer I can keep going. Feeling nothing sometimes feels worse than being really sad. Story 14. Everything I've ever achieved in life is because of a substance most people would never expect. It sounds crazy, but it's true. Long story short, I've been struggling with depression and despairing thoughts since I was 9 years old. Currently, I'm 21F. I did okay in school and got into an average university. That's when I really realized how severe my depression was. I was alone, and my parents weren't around to help me. I started spending 4 days at a time in bed doing absolutely nothing and failed a bunch of exams during the first semester. By that point, I had already tried Concerta, fluoxetine, and sertraline. I went to my GP and she put me on citalopram, but exams were coming up and I couldn't wait 6 weeks for it to work. That's when I turned to something else. I had tried it once before at a party and remembered how happy it made me feel, so I used it again. I remember that day so clearly. I wasn't tired. My body didn't feel like a pile of bricks. The voice in my head that had haunted me for 11 years vanished. I never felt better, so I started using it daily. I went from lying in bed all day to spending 10 hours in the library studying. I learned an entire year's worth of material in about 3 weeks. I'd take small amounts throughout the day, and I passed all my exams. When I went home for the summer, I didn't use anything for 3 months. Being sober wasn't too bad. Now that I had experienced what it was like not to be depressed, even when I felt low again, I reminded myself that life could feel better. But when I returned to university in my second year, studying became impossible. With winter approaching, I found myself back in bed feeling overwhelmed. So I turned to the same thing again, and it worked. I got back on track, started going to class, and studied regularly. I didn't have unlimited money, so I rationed what I had. I'd plan my use each month and space it out carefully. That was 2 years ago. I still use it every day. I also use other substances recreationally, but this one became my routine. Thanks to it, I'm now a top student. My professors love me. People come to me for help with their assignments. All my grades are A's. I've learned so much and become an academic person because of this. Of course, using something every day isn't sustainable. It's expensive. It's harmful to my health, but I don't know how else to function. My parents are extremely strict and don't believe in psychological medication. When I was 16 and tried sertraline, they called me a drug addict and said everything was in my head. They forbid me from taking anything else. When I turned 18, I went to my GP again. She prescribed more options, but nothing worked. In some ways, I resent my parents. They never noticed the money missing from my bank account every month, but they'd be furious if they found out I had spoken to a therapist or taken mental health medication. In a way, their rejection of help made me turn to this. I feel torn. I know this isn't a good path. I know it's not healthy or sustainable, but nothing else has worked. I stay sober if I'm not doing academic work, but I still have 2 more years left in my degree, and I don't know what else to do. Story 15. My ex was emotionally manipulative and abusive. Every single thing I said or did was twisted against me. If I said hi to my sister, suddenly I was plotting to leave him. If I said I didn't like something, it was taken as a personal insult. He violated my privacy completely, reading my emails, even ones from before we ever met. Everything he did was meant to provoke a reaction. Tears, arguments, anything. Eventually, I started shutting down emotionally. The final straw came 1 month after I had given birth. I was suffering from postpartum depression and severe sleep deprivation. I noticed he had been glued to his phone more than usual, so I checked it. There it was. Messages to a woman he had spoken negatively about in the past. He was sending heart emojis, calling her Sigh, saying he couldn't wait to be with her. There were explicit details about what he wanted her to do. That was the last time I cried. I went completely numb. No more reactions, no more responses, and that made him furious. He started pushing harder to get something out of me, but it didn't work. I had disconnected from any real feeling. I cut all emotional ties. It's been 3 years since I left him. I've managed to function again. I can respond to things now, but it's all surface level. I use sarcasm, humor, and quick wit. But heartfelt emotions? They take days to process. I don't feel things in the moment anymore, and I don't know how to fix that. Story 16. Me, 18F, and my boyfriend, 18M, are having issues regarding physical intimacy. A little backstory. We've known each other for almost 3 years, but we only started talking seriously last year in June. Within a month, we connected deeply. We shared everything from past traumas to likes, dislikes, and opinions. During one of our early conversations, he told me he hadn't watched adult content or engaged in self-pleasure for 4 months because he didn't want to affect his fitness progress. By mid-July, we had our first kiss. I was supposed to leave for college in early August, and he assured me he was okay with doing long distance. I was beyond grateful. He's honestly one of the kindest people I've ever met. Before I moved, we shared lots of hugs and kisses. After college started, we often discussed the physical distance, and he always reassured me it wasn't a big deal. He said he didn't rely on adult content or self-pleasure anyway. In September, we officially committed to each other. Since I was away, we only saw each other once a month, and our physical interactions remained limited to hugs and kisses. It wasn't until late October that things escalated. We started meeting more frequently, and by December we had our first intimate experience. It was the first time for both of us. From then until late February, we had a very active physical relationship, meeting 2 to 3 times a week. He was scheduled to move abroad in early March and had always assured me that he'd manage the physical distance. Main story. Now that we've been doing international long distance for over 2 months, he has expressed several times how much he misses the physical aspect. He admitted that while he thought he'd be able to handle it, it's been harder than expected due to how active things were before he left, which I understand completely because I struggle too. Yesterday, during an argument, he brought up that I still engage in self-pleasure occasionally, which he knew about. I never watch explicit content, and I've always made it clear that watching that kind of material is a boundary for me. It feels like cheating. He doesn't watch or engage in it either. But this time, he told me that my regular self-pleasure, every 3rd day or so, was affecting him negatively and making the distance harder for him to manage. I didn't know it was a problem for him, and I told him I would have adjusted if I had known. I explained that since we're not going to meet for 8 more months, I think it's completely fine, and that he can do it too if it helps. But he said he can't do it without watching something, and I reminded him that I consider that a breach of our agreement. Then I asked how long he thinks he can go on without it, and he said maybe 6 months. But then he added in a strange tone, "Whenever I do, I'll watch something for sure." I'm telling you now. I've told him before that I'd end things if he crossed that boundary. Instead of reassuring me, he said nothing, and even added that if he really wanted to, he could do it and I'd never know. That hurt because he's always been the kind of person who tells me everything, no matter how small, just to keep our relationship transparent. Now I feel really insecure. What if he breaks my trust while we're apart? Even if he was just being honest about what he was thinking, I felt disrespected. I clearly set boundaries that we both agreed on, and now it feels like he's pulling away from them. That's what scares me. Story 17. My mom was in and out of consciousness. She had experienced a stroke and a brain bleed. She was stable and recovering from the traumatic brain injury that morning. My mom has a history of dating younger men. Once, she was involved with my sister's boyfriend's brother, who was 23, while she was 49. I've caught her with many different men over the years. It's almost like a pattern. Even the men she's married have always been several years younger. It's hard for me to accept. My mom also has a history of mental health challenges. She often prioritized relationships over her children and was drawn to men who drank or used substances. Growing up, it was obvious she put her partners before me and my siblings. While I sat beside her as she rested, her phone kept buzzing with messages. Out of concern, I looked. That's when I saw messages from someone I recognized, someone I used to know and wanted nothing to do with. He's someone who once tried to date me. I had shut him down and distanced myself, but he obsessed for months, even driving out of his way just to pass by my house. To my shock, he was now messaging my mom. Their chats were flirty and suggestive. She was engaging with him. She still doesn't know that I know. It was heartbreaking to learn this while she was in such a fragile state, fighting between life and death. She's fully recovered now, walking, talking, driving, and working again. But I still haven't told her what I saw. I feel guilty for snooping, but at the same time, I feel deeply disturbed. She knows how I feel about this person. I've made it clear that I want absolutely no connection to him. I think about it almost every single day. Did I violate her privacy? Maybe, but sometimes it feels like she's stuck in a teenage mindset and needs constant boundaries. Still, I know that doesn't make it right. I'm sorry, Mom. And truthfully, I wish I didn't know what I know. Story 18. I turned 19 today. I still don't know what to type or how to say all this, but I got the news that my mother passed away today. Recently, I moved to an entirely new state for college. Ever since the age of 10, I've struggled with making friends. It's not that people don't talk to me, but they only do when they need favors, like notes or help. I've tried forming close friendships, but for some reason, I've always been treated as if I'm not part of the group. I've also struggled with my gender identity and sexual orientation while growing up. Last year, I got into a good college after giving one of the toughest exams in the country. I had hoped I would finally connect with people and try my best to improve myself. Unfortunately, college was even worse than school. There was intense groupism right from the start, based on what language you spoke. 2 languages dominated, and I didn't speak either. Despite my efforts, I was left out from day one. I didn't have real friends in college, just a few people who reached out when they needed help or notes. The only thing that kept me going was my mother. She was always there for me, never judged me, and listened to everything I had to say. Every day I talked to her for hours and shared everything with her. I've struggled with despairing thoughts for the past 3 to 4 years, but the only reason I never acted on them was because of her. I don't have a good relationship with my dad. He abused me physically and emotionally while I was growing up. Even though he now seems to understand how wrong he was, the trauma is still too much to forget. Every year I used to celebrate my birthday with my mother only, since I didn't have close friends. I'd usually get a message from 2 or 3 people, which helped a little. This year in college, there's a group chat made specifically for birthday wishes, but no one wished me. I even jokingly told some people the day before that it was my birthday, hoping someone would say something in the group. But no one did. I know it sounds embarrassing, but I was just that desperate. I really hoped this year would feel different. What hurt the most was that one person I told messaged me, only to ask for notes. He didn't even say happy birthday. Just 2 words. That's all I wanted. I waited for my mother to call and wish me at midnight. She didn't. I assumed she had fallen asleep early because she had work. Even though I was a little disappointed, I convinced myself it was fine, because I knew she'd be the only one to remember anyway. But when I woke up, my dad told me that my mom had passed away in her sleep from natural causes. I couldn't believe it. I still can't. But I do know one thing. The only person I live for is no longer here. And today in a few hours, I plan to take a walk around my campus for the last time, because it's beautiful and one of the few things that help me feel calm. After that, I plan to return to my room, and hopefully I'll be with her again in the afterlife. Story 19. I've lied and gotten away with it many times by telling people I'm a twin. The truth is, I'm not. But over the years, whenever someone asked, I just went along with it and never told the truth. You see, I'm mixed race, half black and half white. I don't often see people who look like me in my day-to-day life. In school, it was rare to be in a class, or even in a school, with someone who had my exact skin tone or hair texture. But whenever I did meet someone similar, people would assume we were related. Once on the first day of school, I sat in a group with someone who looked a lot like me. A classmate asked if we were twins. I instantly said yes and made up a story that our parents divorced and gave full custody of each child to make it fair. My classmate ran with it, and we never admitted it was a lie. Even the teacher believed us. I've repeated this with other biracial people I've met, using new, sometimes dramatic backstories that sound just believable enough. No one ever doubted me. I do feel bad now, especially because some of the stories I made up were based on real, difficult situations people actually experience. I don't make that joke anymore. I've grown up and realized the world isn't always a place for silly lies. Some things just aren't funny when you think about how real they are for others. Story 20. During 2023, while I was browsing on MRM, my reading manga website, a pop-up ad appeared, and something strange happened. I saw a guy who looked oddly familiar in one of those webcam ads. Out of curiosity, I clicked on it and realized it was my high school bully. Mind you, he wasn't aggressively mean, more like annoying, name-calling, pulling my pants down in front of others, childish stuff. At first, I couldn't believe it, but then I noticed the username and how it was a twist on his real name. Something like Chris XXson. I watched for a bit. He was performing live and chatting with viewers. Initially, I just wanted to mess with him, but then I became drawn to him. I ended up creating an account, interacting with him, and even spending money. He wasn't a big performer or anything. His viewership usually stayed in the low double digits, but I became obsessed. After work, I'd always check in, chat, and send coins. Over time, I confirmed it really was him. But by then, I was hooked. I even started reconnecting with old friends to learn more about his life. Eventually, I found out he was unemployed, living with his sister. I began hanging around his area hoping to catch a glimpse, and I did. For someone who's always seen myself as a loner, destined to grow old alone, seeing him made something click. It felt like he was suddenly within reach. So I planned a casual encounter. I bumped into him at his usual convenience store and acted surprised. I guilt-tripped him into buying me a drink as payback for bullying me back then. He was sincerely apologetic, which I found kind of endearing. That led to a casual bar hangout. I planned it all out, reminiscing about old times, laughing, and eventually suggesting a walk in the park with a few more drinks. We couldn't stop talking. He opened up about his life, stuff I already knew, and I comforted him. Before I knew it, we were making out on a park bench at night. I walked him back home, where his sister was worried sick. The next day I texted him. I had to lie about how I got his number and address, which I had gotten from a mutual friend. I told him he was too drunk and gave it to me himself. From that point on, I interacted with him both in real life and on the cam site. He'd chat there about random things during low viewer times, and I'd be there as a supportive online stranger, nudging him gently in the direction I wanted. After some time, he agreed to go on a proper date with me. During the 2 months that followed, I got to know him even better. I learned he loved baking, but had never pursued it. So using my connections, I helped him get an apprenticeship at a local bakery. He was genuinely grateful. Eventually, he announced on the cam site that he was leaving to start fresh. I sent him a final tip and congratulated him. In real life, he never brought up the cam stuff. 8 months into our relationship, he moved in with me. Now he bakes fresh bread and pastries at home, and we are completely in love. We celebrated our 1-year anniversary 5 months ago and are now saving up to open his own bakery. My house always smells like fresh bread. His sister loves me. We're like a small family now, And yes, sometimes I feel like I manipulated the situation, but I love him deeply. He knows I care for him. I plan to propose next year. What started as a prank ended up becoming the greatest leap I've ever taken. And honestly, I'd do it all again. Story 21. I cut off my friend of probably 8 years because I had to. We used to live in the same neighborhood. After school, we'd come back, help each other with homework, and hang out with other kids until dinner time. I loved spending time with her. We even lived in the same building, just 2 floors apart. As we got older, things began to change. She started dating seniors at her school when she was just a sophomore. I had never dated before. So at 15, I didn't understand why she was rushing into relationships. I wanted my first to be something meaningful. But I never said anything. Her life, her choices. Eventually, my family moved to another neighborhood, not too far, and we kept in touch through Discord, later through Instagram. About a year after I moved, she came to visit. We had met a couple of times at the mall before that, but when she came to my house, all she talked about was her boyfriend. She wanted me to prank call him from my phone, or even invite him over, said he lived nearby. We were only 16, and inviting someone into the neighborhood required going through security, which would notify my parents. I explained I couldn't do that, but she kept pushing. She never texted me first, and when I messaged her, she'd reply days later, even though she was constantly online, posting stories. I helped her with her schoolwork, even stayed up until 2 a.m. for her math tests. But when I brought up how she never responded, she'd just say, "I'm a bad texter." Eventually, I stopped texting first. Then out of nowhere, she messaged me asking me to lie to her mom, say she was hanging out with me so she could go see her boyfriend. I didn't know the guy, and I didn't want to be responsible if something happened. I told her I couldn't do that. After that, she never messaged me again, unless I did first. So I waited. Nothing. One day I unfollowed her on Instagram, removed her from my followers, and that was it. The friendship ended right there. Now, I ran into her recently at a school fest. She was there with her boyfriend. It brought back a few memories, and I started wondering, was I wrong to cut her off? But deep down, I know I wasn't. I had to do it for myself. Story 22. To say I'm in shock would be an understatement. I, 39F, have 2 kids, 3M, 1M, with my future ex, 38M. We've been together for 10 years. 2 days ago, I found out that he's been cheating on me and living a double life, pretending he was single. The other woman contacted me and told me everything. I wasn't ready. I'm still not. He told her that he was single, that we were just living together while I looked for a new place, which is completely false. He said I wasn't working and didn't want to. Also false, I had been going through postpartum depression after our second child. I was struggling to take care of 2 children under 2, with barely any support, because in his words, I was on maternity leave for a reason. After that, I went back to work and was physically assaulted by a special needs teenage student, which left me with a concussion. Again, little to no help. He told me I didn't need the paid medical leave because I was just faking symptoms, according to him. I had migraines, extreme light, and sound sensitivity. It was awful. They were intimate for over a year without any protection. I'm completely at a loss. I might update when the spinning stops a little. Story 23. My older brother had some serious issues growing up. Most of them were related to substance use. He was 14 when it started. I was 10. My parents kept an emergency stash of cash hidden in the house. The amount changed from time to time, but all of us kids knew where it was. My brother would steal money from the stash. One night I caught him. He asked me not to tell our parents. Sometime later, my mom and dad noticed the money was going missing. They had a serious conversation about it, wondering if one of us was sneaking some out. I went into my room, opened my drawer, and took out my birthday money. I used to hide it under my training bras, knowing my brothers wouldn't look there. I had saved up around $475. I used my own money to replace what my brother took so he wouldn't get in trouble. But it didn't stop. He kept taking more, and I kept replacing it. I had no idea how serious his problem really was. Because of that, I ended up missing a birthday party trip with one of my friends. My family couldn't afford for me to go at the time, and I didn't say anything. Eventually, everything caught up with him. My parents realized what was happening and figured out it was him. When they found out what I had done, they sat me down and yelled at me for hiding it and using my money to cover it up. Today, my brother is clean. He has a stable job, And anytime we go out, he covers everything. I think he still feels the guilt. He's trying to make it up to me. And honestly, I think he always will. Story 24. It was the early 2000s, I was 11, and my best friend invited me over for a sleepover. We were playing video games, probably Halo, when his mom asked him to help her with something. After a minute or two, I got curious and decided to see what was going on so we could get back to playing. I walked toward where I heard them talking. That's when I saw his mom holding a goodnight's diaper, and my best friend was stepping into it. He looked so embarrassed. His mom quickly said, "Don't mind us, we're just cleaning." But I knew what was happening. So for some reason I said, "I wear them too, but didn't bring mine." I don't even know why I said that. Maybe to make him feel less embarrassed. His eyes looked like two wide black circles, shocked and confused. His mom smiled and said, "Well, we have plenty," and held another one open. I took off my pants and underwear, and she helped me put one on, pulling it up snugly. The truth is, I'd never worn goodnights before. I didn't have a bedwetting issue, but in that moment, it just felt like the best way to support my friend and ease the awkwardness. We ended up having a great time the rest of the night, and every sleepover after that, we both wore goodnights. I didn't care. I just loved being at his house. My family couldn't afford video games, and those nights were some of the happiest memories I had. Story 25. I was in a hotel with my family for a sports tournament. It had been a long day, and after playing hard, I was getting ready for bed and headed to the shower. The hotel was a little sketchy, so it took a while for the water to warm up. While waiting, I decided to use the bathroom. Now, I'm lactose intolerant, and there was ice cream at the tournament. It looked too good to resist, and I gave in. So there I was, sitting on the toilet, absolutely regretting my decision. After I was done dealing with the consequences, the shower water was finally warm. I flushed the toilet and hopped in the shower. But when I got out, I saw that water was coming out of the toilet like Niagara Falls. My jersey and pajamas were floating across the bathroom. I panicked and grabbed a towel to try and stop the toilet, as if that would work. Then I grabbed another towel to soak up the water, but it didn't help. Eventually, I just went to get my mom. When she asked what happened, I told her that the shower head had been turned the wrong way, and I didn't notice. Thankfully, she helped clean everything up. But now every time we go to a hotel, she makes a joke about that night. I can't even defend myself because I'd rather not tell everyone that the real reason was, well, a massive lactose-related mistake. So moral of the story, if you're lactose intolerant, don't test the limits of a hotel toilet. Story 26. To set the scene, this friend has been in my life for a while. She lives in a camper next to my house and helps me take care of my kids. I have a limited support system, so her help seemed valuable at first. But from the start, strange things began happening. She started stealing things like my clothes and moisturizer. I only got them back when I checked her car or camper. Then I discovered a fake lease she created using my forged signature. She also let the camper develop mold and essentially ruined it. Things got even weirder. About a month ago, she thought she was pregnant. We got pregnancy tests, but instead of taking one inside, she insisted on going to her camper first. Then she came back in and said it was positive. Soon after, she claimed she was pregnant with twins. I wanted to go to a doctor's appointment with her, since we were each other's support system. She told me the father was someone she had casually dated who didn't want to be involved. She kept delaying appointments or saying she already went. She gave me the name of her doctor, so I called pretending to be her and said I forgot the date of my next appointment. They told me she wasn't even a patient there. She never posted anything about it on Facebook, which was strange. I had a mutual friend post a congratulatory message on her wall. She deleted it and messaged her privately. She sent me a blurry ultrasound image that didn't show any readable details. Then today, my daughter, who recently got a job, needed to take a drug test. She told this friend that she had smoked weed and was worried it would show up, so my friend offered to provide a urine sample for her. We tested the sample twice, and both tests came back negative